I think it's always challenging to speak in a large group, but maybe it's a good place to start, and then we can see where we go. But I'd be interested in general about your experience with Print Point in general, and we can see where that heads off to. I had a lot of good experiences, but I'm open to hearing back from you guys. Maybe just keep the floor open for sharing.
It's very nice to lay down in gallery, which is not usually allowed to, because every time I go anywhere to gallery, in Czech or here, doesn't matter, after 5 minutes I'm so tired. Because the back, and I don't want to be tired, but I'm just, it's just there. So I really enjoy it, like especially one room, laying down and sliding through all the room, see all the pictures from this position.
You slid.
Slide, yeah. Yes, with the legs, and it was nice. Actually, I don't need to do handstand because I was thinking about the
idea.
About the idea you've talked about before, because I somehow understood for what, why. But I like to find body positions to see the picture and still see it, not from up and down. So, and yes, one thing is to see objects and art, and the other thing is to see the space.
It's more to see objects.
It's two things. Yeah,
Oh.
and maybe yes, I can see the space up and down. This works. And then I found few places there wasn't any yellow point, and I enjoyed it as well. Yeah, so there are many possibilities where to stand, how to see it, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the amazing thing about this museum, because I mean, what I hear you say is you didn't have to stick to the points. You could crawl, you could do other things. I know there were some people that pushed the boundaries and did get asked to not do, so there are boundaries, but in general it's quite flexible. There's some flexibility in there. Yeah, and you said something, Dirk, when we were downstairs, you came upon a moment about somehow the redesigning is the seeing of this. What was that?
No, the rearranging of my body. When I lie on the floor with my back, and I was really looking upright, very high, that I could see the ceiling. So I rearranged my body. For me, that rearranged the space position, and for me, that was done. That this combination redesigned the space for me.
Yeah, in the act of looking at
yes.
it. Yeah.
So I could redesign the perspective. And that was fascinating.
Yeah, and I think to give credit to the fact that this museum, the design of it, and the architect who created the new kind of porous spaces and the views, like they thought about the views anyway, so it's already thought about. And then I think this project just takes advantage of that, or knows that that's a possibility and engages that. So, yeah, I think laying down, you're already given so much great views because it was thought through that way. And that was a great moment. I'll just add, because I haven't been here. This was 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, almost 2 years that it got installed when I was here for the opening, but I haven't been back since. There's been some dialogue about, is it working, are people using it? But I've been wanting to come back and see, because at the opening I could kind of engage, but I was more looking at it from the outside. And then today, realizing that one of the guards was so excited. He didn't know that I had anything to do with the project. He just saw the four of us sitting in the corner. He knew that we were engaging the project, and he said, "Oh, come with me. You have to see my favorite spot. It's downstairs. It's downstairs. Come." And then he said, "You have to lay down. You have to look up." And we looked up, and then he went upstairs, and he looked over the edge of us, laughing. Like,
Came late. Hello.
And I thought, it's working. And it becomes a very humanistic project. We're all equalized in that moment, right? And that kind of boundary between, oh, you're the guard, I'm the visitor, it just kind of disappears for a minute. And I think that's really important to me in this project. So yeah. What else? Yeah.
I felt
I really enjoyed that. It just gave you permission to look at things from different angles, or take a different position when you watch it. Because I feel the same sometimes when I go to galleries or museums. I get like what I call art gallery legs. Just you've been walking around for so long, and I feel obliged to stand because everyone else is standing. And so there's something really nice about suddenly like giving yourself permission to just sit down because you're tired. Like even if it doesn't give you a new perspective on the work, which it does almost always because you're looking at it from a different angle. But yeah, it's really nice because there's also something I find really liberating about taking it back as public space, because I sort of found it interesting when you were talking before, the idea of a museum or an art gallery as public space hadn't really crossed my mind before. I think like even growing up in London where most of the museums and art galleries are free, I still didn't consider it as, like my space, because there's still something kind of that seemed a bit inaccessible or a bit kind of elitist about an art gallery that made me feel like there's a certain behavioural code that maybe I don't fit in with or I don't want to adhere to. So then it's not somewhere that I would just go and like be in the space. You have to go there for a reason and look at the art and understand the art, and it's really, I really like the idea that you could just go and like hang out in a gallery and you don't necessarily have to even like read all the stuff and understand everything that's going on. You could just like use it as another space, because we now have so few public spaces that it's really nice that you might be able to utilise these kind of spaces for that, because they are free. Well, not all of them, but yeah, in London at least they're free. And like growing up there, I didn't think of it as a space that I could use like as a young person, because maybe I'd get like chased out for loitering. And so I like the idea that you could do that. I don't know if every place would be so accepting, but
yeah, it's culturally specific too.
Yeah.
In the United States, I mean,
We really, in Los Angeles, public space is really now so privatized, and libraries are the only, like public libraries in the U.S. are really the only true public spaces, and often homeless people, when it's cold, will go into the library and they can't be asked to leave because it's a truly public space. And there you see, like, well, of course they're going there because they can't be asked to leave, and so you see that they're not going to the parks anymore because they're asked to leave the park because it's a private park, owned by a corporation, and it's surveilled, and all this. But I want to say, it was good for me, to walk the talk, as they say, right? Like I can blah blah talk about my work, and then I thought it is something to be inside of it, and so I went up, and I went, the image I showed of the girl with her legs up the wall with all the frames. So I went to that spot. And I put my legs up the wall. I'm not great to have a skirt on today. I thought, but there I was, with my legs at the wall, and I was so tired. So I really closed my eyes, and I really could, for moments, go really just in, like, oh, I'm just resting, like I'm in a deep kind of rest. But then I'd be aware, oh, there are people walking. Oh, what do they think? Oh, someone's taking a photo. Oh, this is very performative, And all that passed through my head. And then I got up, and one of the visitors came over to me, and he said, the first thing he said was, oh, it was kind of a pity that you had your artist badge on, because when I saw you there, if you didn't have the artist badge on, I would have had a different experience. It would have been more provocative somehow. But, we know that you're an artist, so you do weird things, Again, like what I said about the passport. And then he said, but then it was great, because I said, well, what was your impression? He said, well, before I saw the artist badge, I'd seen that work. I'd walk out of the room and came back, and he said, oh, did I remember seeing that sculpture? He thought it was sculpt. For a minute he thought I was, and then he saw me breathing. And so there was this thing I thought, oh, I'd never thought about that body could be almost a sculptural element that someone might mistake for, an artwork. And we had a great conversation. He's an artist, and I thought, again, like with the guard, I wouldn't be having a conversation with this person that I do not know sitting here. And then we went our own ways. And I was like, that is really almost more important to me than, oh, cool, let's do a headstand in a museum, take a piss out of the museum kind of approach. But it's about that allowance or that entry point into an engagement or into a conversation. I don't know.
It made me realize also that that you're allowed, I think, as an artist and a dancer, that you're allowed to be yourself much more in a public space. It feels so liberating to just go and stand really close to a painting, or lie next to a sculpture, or just stretch out, or just sit the way you want. And I think as a dancer it comes so natural that you're like, oh, thank God I can just be myself here, I don't have to behave according to the... Yeah, but that's because, and that's also in the public spaces. I think with the projects that the students are doing this week also in the city, for some people it's so provocative, but for them they can be themselves. They don't have to just be in the studio or in the theater and then go out on the street and kind of behave. Or yeah, because it's also, I think when if you are used to looking at the world in a certain way from as an artist, and I think which is very close as a child would look at the world, then it can be really restrictive if you're only allowed to look at it in a certain way, but not to relate to it physically in a kind of way. I have it now with my children that I tell them, oh no, you shouldn't do that. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It's so stupid. But because I think, I'm like, you're so right. I think this is so much more fun. So then you're like, but then if we're in another place, it's not gonna... But that I realized today, actually, that this is kind of like... And then I almost get upset, because then I'm like, even the public spaces are not even allowed for us to be ourselves, even. No? Like how, yeah.
It's interesting what you say. I had exactly the opposite experience from the other side, because 3 of my dear colleagues were really like laying and sliding from the stairs at some point. And then an old lady passed by and she wanted to go from the stairs, so I actually said to her like, oh yeah, please go, I'm good here, just go downstairs. She didn't. She didn't, because it was the moment that you were sliding down.
And why do you think?
Well, she wasn't open to start talking, and I let it there, but she was waiting until the moment was over, and then when it didn't go over, she took another road. So when we take space, we could take it also from somebody else, in a way.
Well, I'm so glad you bring that up, because
this project for me was a turning point in some way after a lot of work I did in Los Angeles, which I didn't show any of that because, you know, that would take forever. But in a nutshell, the work I did in Los Angeles was about walking and being in the city and walking. And I felt many times working in the city that, wow, we did even in Skid Row, which if you know anything about Skid Row, I mean, it was a homeless population, a lot of drug problems on the street. And we did these projects even through really rough neighborhoods. And I really felt... I have to go back inside the museum and gallery, because at least I have a bit more controlled space there, and I understand that space, because I felt we were interfering a lot. And what does it mean to put performance in a public space? Because that space, 1, is already performing. 2, who understand, whose space is that? And I just needed to go into spaces that I felt was part of my culture, part of my understanding, theaters, galleries, museums. Because in the city I felt I was often interfering or creating a discomfort, or I don't like work. I don't like feeling that I'm forcing anyone to do anything, I think, obviously, or keeping someone from enjoying the space they want to enjoy it. So this project felt, it had a subtlety, but again, the users of it could potentially, I mean, you could decide, okay, we're all going to line up and block the stairwell if you want, right? With whatever. I mean, we have choices, but I am interested in the subtle prompting of behavior, but not necessarily where it has to become, what's the word, so political in its approach, or so, to take so much agency that you actually, there's a kind of dominance of it, although it can go there. But I know that happens often with this kind of work, is not everyone, we can assume, thinks it's really cool. And some people can be offended by it, or think, wait, you know, what are you doing to my museum? So I think it's good to really be aware of that.
It came up already on Sunday morning when all the students came together to meet the choreographers. One of the students was asking, there's a very thin line she felt already, where am I invading the space of the public, and where am I in my own? And she reversed the idea. What if in a choreography on stage, suddenly the public would run through the choreography. So what they do in the public space, what the public would do it in the choreography space.
great.
And that was very interesting to see that already on the Sunday morning, that already students were busy with this. So that was nice, just in between things. Yeah, so that these similarities are there.